Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, nominated for the iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award. Thank you so much for your wonderful, wonderful support. We have a wonderful show for you today. Two amazing authors. Margie Markarian is joining us today to tell us about her book, Princess and the Cafe on the Moat. We will also be speaking to Joanie Findle. We met her down at the York Book Expo. She's going to tell us about her wonderful middle grade fantasies. Hey, for all the authors that are listening out there, I wanted to share with you this great email that we received here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast from Dr. Linda Mubarak. She is a past guest and the author of Maxine's New Job. Here's the email. Dear Fatima and Jed, good news! Maxine's New Job has been nominated to receive the prestigious Henri Award at the 2018 Christian Literacy Awards for Outstanding Literacy Work in the Children's Book Division. I sincerely believe your certifying Maxine as a great read helped bring increased social media attention to the book. Thank you for the exposure and the great marketing. We are so happy for Dr. Linda Mubarak that her book, Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Maxine's New Job, received this prestigious recognition. We would love to help your book receive that same kind of recognition. If you are interested in having your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the contact button, send us a note, and we'll send all the information back to you, or you can go right to our Certified Great Read page on our website. It's fun, it's easy, and it is really an effective way to let the world know that your book stands out above all the rest. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. I am so excited. I love speaking to neighbors, and right now, our guest is right down the street. I could probably throw I couldn't throw a baseball, but she's really close. Coming to us from Franklin in Massachusetts, she's the author of Princess and the Cafe on the Moat. Please welcome to the show, Margie Markarian. Margie, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you. I hope you're well too.
I am. We're experiencing kind of a tropical heat wave in the Boston area. It's a balmy 38, 39 degrees, and it feels really warm compared to like the minus 10 we had on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I agree. It's much nicer.
Isn't that so strange? Normally 38 would be very uncomfortable, but when you get that really frigid blast, suddenly, 35, 40, it feels like summer almost.
Right. Absolutely.
So tell us about the Princess and the Cafe on the Moat. Before you do, I just have to let you know, Margie was so kind to send a copy of the book before the show, and it is just a beautiful book. The illustrations are wonderful. And this happens a lot, not with every book that comes, but the books that come in. My wife is a teacher, a second grade special needs teacher, and the books that catch her eye and meet her approval get taken very quickly out of the studio and out of the house and into her classroom. And so that's where my copy of The Princess and the Cafe in the Moat are right now. So can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Sure, and I'm so glad it's already found a home in the second grade. That's a perfect place for it. Well, first off, The Princess and the Cafe on the Moat is a sweet fairy tale for reading out loud, perfect for ages 3 to 9, actually. And I like to call it a fairy tale for our time from once upon a time because it's a traditionally told fairy tale. It's set in a classic setting, but it has a message that resonates in today's world. And it's basically a message about being kind, sharing talents, building a sense of community, and simply taking time to be together. And I can tell you a little bit more if you want me to summarize a little bit. I can give you a little gist of what the story is about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love in the materials that you sent to me that the princess is one of the things that she's frustrated about is that she feels as though she can't contribute, and she really wants to be able to help out.
Right. Yes, the main character is a young princess, and she's entrepreneurial minded, and she lives in a very busy castle where there is a lot of excitement, and she's kind of thwarted in her efforts to be a part of all the bustle. Her parents are, of course, busy with their daily duties with knights and ladies in waiting. There is a jester busy perfecting his act for evening guests. There's a wizard, making spicy potions in the tower, but it's too dangerous for her to join him. And even the royal baker says her sticky, steamy bake shop is no place for a young princess. But the princess is resilient. She's resourceful. She doesn't whine or pout or sulk. She wonders if there are people outside the castle who could use her help. And as in all fairy tales, there's a magical moment, and in this particular story, the magic happens when the drawbridge mysteriously descends and the guard turns away from his post, and the princess is able to dash across the bridge unnoticed and unheard to the other side of the moat, where she quickly finds townspeople in need and whom she can help. And that's where her adventure takes her. And she's able to help a lonely old man by reading a letter that he can't read, and babysitting a weary widow's children, and in helping a brave squire with his injury. And they have a very good time, this new community on the other side of the moat, but the princess is loved and she's missed. So a search, begins and eventually leads all the people in the castle to the other side of the moat. And also a realization, that the princess has found a purpose, and that leads to the opening of a cafe on the moat with the princess in charge and characters from inside the castle and outside the castle being able to come together as a nurturing community that's part of the kingdom, and really brings a sense of connectedness to the world and to the princess's world. So that's the gist of it.
That's a beautiful, beautiful story, and it really resonates with me. One of the things I do in my educational magic shows, and I've mentioned it before in the podcast, is we'll go out and we'll do a magic trick using little beads and ultimately turning the individual beads into a beautiful necklace. But before we do that, I hand the beads out to different kids, and I ask the kids to tell me something that they're grateful for. And I'm amazed that hardly never does a kid say they're grateful for riches or wealth or Xboxes or things like that. It's always family, friends. And very often a child will stand up and say, I'm thankful that I'm able to help others. And I remember the first time it happened, how profound that seemed to me, that you hear this was a 6 or 7 or 8 year old girl who was just thankful that she had an opportunity to help and to lift somebody else up. And I think that that's such an important message. It's instilled a lot of kids. It's just natural to them. And I love any kind of story that will help kids understand just the value of reaching out and helping others.
Yeah, right. That's kind of the purpose of it is that kids are able to contribute. And even adults as well, they find meaning in the stories as well, because I think sometimes we forget we have purpose, and how good it makes an individual feel to be able to extend themselves to others. And that's also intertwined with the message. But children can do so much, and they want a place to contribute. And that's why, like, even in the classroom, kids have jobs in the classroom, because the classroom is a community. So somebody's in charge of running errands or pencil sharpening or keeping things clean. It's fulfilling, actually, to have that sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you mentioned that, the kids can do so much, and they really can do so much. And just something as simple as reading aloud, to have a kid read aloud to an elderly neighbor, or an elderly family member, or even visiting a nursing home, and something that is seemingly so simple could bring so much joy to somebody who is really all alone.
Right, absolutely. That's what part of in my story, it's a sad old man who's holding a scrolled parchment, and he can't read it. It's a scrolled parchment from his son so far away. And that really comes directly. I had, my dad, in his older years, his vision was fading. So when our family got together and we always celebrated birthdays, I mean, my children would help to read him the greeting cards and the birthday cards that were sent to him. So it's small, but a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, they can do that. And you're right. It spreads a lot of joy. And it's important for them, the children themselves, to feel that sense of purpose and to grow up with it.
I love that idea, helping kids feel a sense of purpose. I think that's so very, very important. And I think sometimes we forget how important it is and how empowering it is for us to help our kids feel needed.
Yes. And, like I said, one of the things when I read to an audience, is that not only are the children drawn into the magic and just the story itself, but, adults are as well. I mean, I find that sometimes adults have lost their sense of purpose, or, when in retirement or in, retirement or losing a job or having an empty nest. So sometimes they come to the story with that perspective as well, is that they too can find that if they reach out to the community, that they can find a renewed sense of purpose as well.
Now, was that intentional? Did you intentionally, as you were writing this, understand that you were writing something that was going to be meaningful for both kids and adults, or did you set out to write a beautiful children's story and just was like, oh wow, this can be meaningful for a grown up too?
Well, actually, it was twofold. There was always an underlying message that I felt would resonate with young children and adults. I mean, the seeds for the story came in a few ways. I mean, the first one was that the idea of kids, needing a sense of responsibility and a sense of purpose. The other seed was also, the idea that we live in a very busy world and we just don't always have enough time for each other. Family and friends, never mind strangers. But the other seed came from actually me working, doing a lot of my own work in cafes, and how much I liked, that sense of connectedness of working in a cafe when I had the opportunity, because my home office felt kind of lonely. And in that cafe setting, I could see other people who were in need of connections or enjoyed it. An elderly couple that came every day, somebody whose child was ill, and they came for the companionship and to talk. So the story was meant always to be on one level, to be just a story that children could enjoy for right at the surface level of being about princesses and colorful characters and kings and queens and knights. And the other was also meant that you could find deeper meaning if you were looking for it.
Was there, I understand you're in the cafes and you're experiencing this. Was there one thing that ultimately inspired you to write this book at this point in your life? And
I don't think it was one thing. I actually wrote this book quite a while ago, and I would say, well, maybe there was. It was the sense that I was working in a cafe. My children were a little bit older, and I probably had the story inside me, but it was probably when my daughter left for college, that I really got down to doing my own creative pursuits, and where I might have been at my life at that time, where I was able to get the story out and felt really the need to write it down and get it down on paper. So it was written quite a while ago. It just took me a while to actually, find an agent, send it out, and get it published.
Do you think sometimes a lot of literature, a lot of songs, a lot of creative products that have a message for others kind of come from a place of, I have to express this message for others, but I need to express it for me too.
I suppose that's true. Those messages take time to percolate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, absolutely. So what are some of the reactions from folks who've sat down and experienced the Prince in the Cafe on the Moat?
Well, children themselves, I mean, they're kind of taken in there because kids just like, I think, the empowerment of the princess. I think they relate to her. I get the question a lot as to, like, why didn't you give the princess a name? And I'm like, well, I didn't give the princess a name because I wanted you to think you could be the princess, that I wanted all children to be able to relate to her. So they just love that she's an independent spirit. They love the characters that she meets. And, usually when I present to kids, I distribute hats and props so that they can become a part of the story. So they're very much caught up in the magic of the characters and the princess, and, that the princess has the power to bring the kingdom together. Mm-hmm. Adults are also taken in because when I share the story, I bring the children who are acting as the characters. They all come up with me at the very end of the story when there's a moment where the cafe is opened and all the characters are together, and you can really visually see how a community comes together, and people are touched by that. And you can just see them kind of nodding their heads and saying, yeah, I wish I had that in my life, or yes, that's what happens when people reach out and touch each other and do good deeds and share what they have to give. So I get a very positive feeling. I mean, I get a lot of teary little eyes from the adults, but the kids, it's just all smiles.
Awesome. Now, one of the great things I love about this is that you've created a wonderful website that also has some great resources for parents. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, the website has a few things. It has the book itself can be used by parents, teachers, community leaders to really jumpstart conversations about how you can, about good citizenship, about good character, about empathy. So you can use the book to say, in what is empathy? How does the princess show empathy for the citizens in her kingdom? And talk about having a sense of purpose, or what jobs can we do at home? How can you contribute at the home? How could we contribute at school, or how can we contribute in our community? What good deeds can we do? As a family, or what good deeds can you do as a child, to help out? So that's really a very big way that there's resources, there's questions to help jumpstart those types of conversations. There's also actually in the book itself, I have a kindness activity, that kids can do. It's a hands-on project. I sometimes bring it with me to the bookstores or in the classroom, but I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but you can make a kindness chain, and basically it's strips of construction paper, cut up strips of construction paper, and invite your child, or invite the family to write down on that strip of construction paper a good deed that they perform each day or on a weekly basis, and then loop the chain, close the chain with tape, and then ask the child to continue building on the chain, or every family member. So, the child writes down, I fed the dog today, or I cleaned my room, or I, got a glass of water for my grandmother. But just write a simple good deed that you did on the chain, and see how long that chain can become at the end of a day, or at the end of a week, or at the end of a month, and hopefully it's a long chain. So that's a kindness activity. It's very visual, very tangible, and very simple to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm just imagining how cool it would be for a classroom to do that, and to, start creating this chain at the beginning of the school year, and just keep it going to the point where this chain is just circling the room 5 or 6 or 15 or 20 times.
And that's the idea. That's the idea of it, because I think in our daily lives, sometimes people don't give themselves credit for maybe the good things that they do for others, or they don't notice that they're doing good deeds throughout the day. Even when you pick up the phone to call somebody, or you you pay somebody a compliment, or you help a friend. Those are all things that you could jot down, and when you see the visual and spread it and ask others to do the same, it really does mushroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Just building on top, one kindness on top of another, on top of another. Such a beautiful lesson for not only our kids, but also for grown-ups. Just a great reminder for grown-ups that the choices that we make a difference in other people's lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us the website address so folks can make sure they check that out.
Thank you. Yeah, it's www.margiemarkarian, which is my name, margiemarkarian.com. So pretty straightforward, as long as you could spell my name, which is a little complicated, but it's right there. Just a quick Google search will turn it up. And there's also coloring sheets and activity pages as well, a matching game, a story sequence game, all of which is good for the classroom, and a fairy tale writing activity. Some of those were put together for me by Sleeping Bear Press, which is the publisher of the book. They're out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. So the beautiful art that is in the book, is featured on those pages as well. Mm-hmm. Art by Chloe Douglas, who was the illustrator of the book.
Yes, and as I said at the top of the interview, it really is just a beautiful book. It's very, very, very pleasing. The illustrations are just lovely. And so you definitely want to check it out, margiemarkarian.com. And I mispronounced it because it's spelled MargieMarkarian.com. MargieMarkarian.com. Great website.
Thank you very much, Jed. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And it's a great book. Now, this is your first children's book. Do you have another in the works, something that you're working on for the future?
This is my first children's picture book, and I do have nothing else that I can announce, but I definitely have manuscripts in various stages of completion. And I have also done nonfiction work. I have my roots are as a journalist and reporter and magazine editor, and I've spent some time in children's publishing and educational publishing. So I have other nonfiction works that are out there, but this is my only available picture book at the moment. But definitely working on others.
Excellent. Well, we want you to come back when those new books are available. And in the meantime, make sure you get over to MargieMarkarian.com and check out The Princess in the Cafe on the Moat. Margie, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Jed. I appreciate it.
I would love to give you a free digital download of my latest book called Love That I Matter to You. Love That I Matter to You. I love this story. It came to me after a conversation with my wife and her best friend, who is, both of them are educators in the Boston public school systems. And I was asking them, how can we motivate parents to read more with their kids? And they pointed out to me that, they said, gently, some of our parents can't read. And some of our parents can't read English. And some of our parents are working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the rent. And so it's really challenging for them. And it got me to thinking. And that's where the idea for Love That I Matter came from that conversation. And Love That I Matter, I wrote it not for parents to read to their kids, but I wrote it for kids to read to their parents. Because it's a wonderful way for kids to just remind their parents how much they enjoy spending time and doing things with their parents, whether it's reading, helping them cook, watching TV together, talking about the day. It's just a wonderful way to help kids express their thanks to their parents. And I guarantee you are absolutely going to love hearing your child read this story to you. And like your kids, they ask you to read those same books over and over and over again, you're going to ask your kid to read this book to you over and over and over again to you. You're going to love it. And like I said, you can get a free digital download of Love That I Matter to You at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. All you need to do is to sign up for our newsletter. We send it out very infrequently, and it's just filled with information about the show and things that you can do with your kids, like magic lessons and coloring pages and things like that. Absolutely free. The digital download is free. The newsletter is free, and you're going to love it. Check it all out. Love That I Matter to You. Free digital download when you sign up for our newsletter at readingwithyourkids.com. We're real excited. We're at the York Book Expo, and I came across this really cool table display, and it's table for Joanie Findle, and she's the author of Out of This World and Trolls in the Attic and some other great middle grade fantasy, right?
Supernatural. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, what's the difference between fantasy and supernatural?
Supernatural has an element of the surreal, ghosts and trolls, time travel. I've often look at things in real life and kind of put a supernatural twist to them. For example, dice that are cursed. I had a stray cat show up once at my house, and that turned into one of my favorite stories, Buddy, who is a cat that shows up at 3 different places to 3 different children, all on the same day, 3 different parts of the country, and helps them through some difficult times. So growing up, raising 3 kids, I just kind of looked at real life around me, and I took things from my life and I added a supernatural twist.
Cool. And what's the reaction that you get from kids when they're reading your books?
Kids are typically delighted. They get drawn in. They say that they feel like the stories are written for them, which is quite a compliment, I feel. If a child likes ghost stories, likes to kind of try to figure things out before the end of the story, then these tales are for them. There are going to be 5 volumes. Right now I have 2 published. The 2 that you mentioned, and then coming soon I also have The Haunted Inning and More Tales of the Supernatural, Nightmare Below the Earth, and then lastly will be Trolls in Her Dreams, so the trolls come back. The trolls from my very first volume were quite popular. The kids are really drawn to the look of the trolls on the cover, and so I decided to bring those back for the final volume of the series.
Isn't it weird? I remember my daughter when she was in middle school, she was fascinated by the ghost hunter shows. And she was really, of course she wouldn't watch it by herself, and so she had to have me watch it. But what do you think it is about that age group that they're so fascinated with this kind of supernatural stuff?
I think kids like to be scared. They like the resolution at the end where they can kind of breathe a sigh of relief, but they like that thrill, especially when it's something unusual. I do have some of the typical scary things like ghosts and werewolves, but I also like to, like I said, take things that are completely different, like the cursed dice. I have some time travel. I have a child who turns into a slug. So I try to bring in some things that the kids have never experienced before, but they'll still find intriguing.
Excellent. What kind of conversations do you think families and kids can have if they're co-reading your books?
Sometimes I'll have some of the things that happen to some of the characters are a result of something that they have done. So the families can kind of look at that. For example, the one I just mentioned with the boy who becomes a slug, there's a reason for that. It's the way that he treats people. So certainly the families can have a conversation about why did that happen, cause and effect, how do you feel about that, how do you think that other child should have reacted. So there's certainly a conversation there.
Awesome. Well, if folks want to pick up Trolls in the Attic or Out of This World by Joanie Findle, where can they find them?
Sunbury Press is my publisher, and we are also on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest is the author of Fantastic Failures. His name is Luke Reynolds. This is going to be a great show. Hey, we want to thank Margie Markarian for being here today. We want to thank Joanie Findle for being here today. And we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.